The wind screamed through Mount Tigerwolf, a merciless gust that clawed at the travelers scaling its heights. The mountain loomed over the Arliss region like a predator carved from stone, its peaks jagged against a sky bruised with dusk. The sun is going down. Think we can make it over the mountain before nightfall? Victor said, slightly concerned. Let's keep climbing. Come on. Odessa replied with a commanding presence. Gravel crunched under Gameon's boots, each step a battle against the shifting trail and the cold that bit at his knuckles. His companions pressed close, their cloaks snapping in the gale, faces shadowed by hoods. They carried a secret for the Liberation Army, a spark to ignite rebellion against the Scarlet Moon Empire's suffocating rule. The air reeked of frost and something wilder, perhaps the scent of beasts stalking unseen crevices. The trail narrowed, forcing them single file past cliffs that plunged into darkness. As twilight deepened, a faint glow flickered ahead, a lone inn, its warped timbers sagging under years of neglect. Smoke trailed from a crooked chimney, promising warmth but hinting at danger. Gameon's hand hovered near his staff as they approached, instincts sharp from days of peril. Outside the inn, the air was thick with stale ale and a cloying sweetness. That set his nerves alight. One man waited, leading the innkeeper, wiry, his sly grin a mask for greed. Welcome, good travelers. Out for a climb at this hour? I suggest you stop here and continue on tomorrow, Ladon said. It isn't safe around these parts with all the bandits roaming about. He continued. Gameon was reluctant as he sensed a trap, but Victor and the rest all wanted a well-earned rest. Inside the inn, Leiden offered tea, steaming and fragrant, but its allure hid a sinister truth. Known as robber's tea, it was a bandit's trick, brewed to plunge travelers into a stupor ripe for plundering. You must try some of this tea. It's a specialty blend from Mount Tigerwolf, Leiden said. Once again, Gameon sensed the trap and didn't want to try. However, the others have all tasted the tea, and he had no choice but to follow. Within seconds, the entourage collapsed and fell into a deep sleep. However, fate intervened when the other robber arrived. Kessler, a scarred giant, his presence heavy as the mountain itself. A spark of recognition flared in the giant's eyes, triggered by one of Gameon's companions. "Hey, Ladon! What have you done, you fool?" Kessler shouted. Ladon panicked, unsure what he had done wrong. "Even an imbecile like you must know of Lady Odessa, leader of the Liberation Army," Kessler continued. The bandits' scheme faltered, their menace giving way to wary respect. Hands meant for theft offered aid instead, and the inn transformed from a predator's den into a fleeting refuge. The antidote was prepared, and the team regained consciousness. Forgive me, Lady Odessa. Though completely unintentional, I nearly committed the gravest error of my life, Kessler said, his voice filled with guilt and regret. I will just need to be more careful in the future, Odessa replied, laughing it off. Flick tells me I am too trusting of people. Maybe he is right, Odessa continued. Dawn broke cold as they descended, Mount Tigerwolf fading into the mist like a half-forgotten dream. Ahead lay Sarady, a village cradled in the Banner Mountain's gentle embrace. Snow dusted its rooftops, and smoke curled from chimneys, blending with the morning fog. The Empire's shadow felt faint here, its decrees drowned by the valley's quiet pulse. Gameon's chest loosened as they passed weathered homes, the laughter of children a faint echo in the lanes. Yet Sarady hid a sharper purpose beneath its calm. This seems to be the inn. Let's get some lodgings while we wait for the messenger, Odessa said, as the entourage entered the local inn. They carried blueprints for the fire spear, a weapon of steel and hope meant for the Liberation Army's secret forges. As night fell, the village stirred with hidden intent. Stars burned bright above, casting Sarady in silver. The air in the inn smelled of cedar and wool, a balm after the mountain's bite. The night stretched taut, heavy with the weight of their task. The rest of the team retired for the night, but Gameon noticed someone missing from her bed. Odessa stood at the balcony, gazing into the starry night. "Can't sleep?" Odessa asked as Gameon closed the door behind him. "Guess I am not the only one," Odessa continued. "Mind if I tell you something?" Odessa suddenly asked. "What is it?" Gameon said. "Kessler from Mount Tigerwolf, Flick, Humphrey, Sanchez, they all have high hopes for me. But sometimes I just want to run away from it all. I am afraid of not living up to their expectations." Odessa was human after all. "What do you plan to do now? Will you return to the Empire?" Odessa asked, looking into Gameon's eyes. "I don't know. You are capable of choosing right from wrong." You can't ignore what you have seen, what you have felt. To do so would be a terrible sin, Odessa added. There is something mysterious about you. When you are around, I feel more compassionate. There are many in the Liberation Army, but none of them have such captivating eyes like you do. Eyes that draw people in. You know, if something were to happen to me... Just then, a shadow moved. Beyond the walls, a ninja, silent as a blade. His arrival interrupted Odessa's words. After Odessa verified the identity of the messenger, the blueprints changed hands with swift precision. A silent vow passed into the dark. The figure vanished, leaving only the crunch of snow in his wake. As Gameon fell into sleep, Sarady's peace sank into him, a glimpse of a world free from tyranny. The mountain had been a crucible, its dangers binding them together. Sarady offered hope, a reminder of lives worth fighting for. Yet the path ahead wound toward battles unseen, the rebellion a fire growing in Gameon's blood. The next morning, as they departed, the village faded into the dawn, its rooftops swallowed by mist. The Banner Mountains stood watch, their peaks gleaming with new snow. Gamon's resolve hardened, each step a promise to carry the spark forward no matter the cost. The blueprints for the fire spear had passed into the ninja's hands, a silent vow carried into the night, and with it a weight lifted from Gameon's shoulders, though another, heavier burden waited unseen. The air was crisp, scented with pine and the promise of winter as they retraced their path toward Lenankamp. The journey back felt both familiar and strange, the world sharper now, as if the act of rebellion had honed Gameon's senses to every rustle of leaves, every shadow cast by the rising sun. The trail wound through valleys and over low hills, the Scarlet Moon Empire's presence growing stronger with each mile. Distant banners fluttered on the horizon, their golden threads a reminder of the yoke tightening around the land. Gamon's pace quickened, driven by a restless urgency. Lenankamp lay ahead, its walls a haven for the Liberation Army's whispers, a place where hope hid in secret corners. The city's silhouette emerged by midday, its rooftops smudged against a sky heavy with clouds. Smoke hung in the air, not the homely curl of hearths, but something acrid, laced with ruin. Gameon's pulse quickened, a prickle of dread crawling up his spine. The streets of Lenankamp were unnaturally quiet, the usual bustle replaced by a tension that clung like damp rot. Shutters hung askew, and wary eyes peered from shadowed doorways. Gameon led his party through alleys, their steps cautious, guided by instinct toward the Liberation Army's hideout. But as they approached, the air shifted, thick with the tang of iron and charred wood. The door stood splintered, its frame gaping like a wound. Inside, chaos reigned. The innkeeper laid on the floor, mortally wounded. "What happened here? Are you all right?" Odessa asked, while trying to stop the bleeding on the innkeeper. "The Imperial soldiers came out of the blue. I am sorry, Lady Odessa." Those were the innkeeper's final words. Odessa rushed ahead. Gameon and the rest followed. The hideout was a tableau of destruction. Tables overturned, papers scattered like fallen leaves, and the flicker of torches casting jagged shadows. Imperial soldiers had struck, their presence a storm still raging. Gameon raised his staff as shouts and steel rang out, the air thick with the stench of blood. The soldiers were a disciplined tide, their armor glinting coldly, spears and blades slicing through the dim light. Gaemon's companions fanned out, their movements a desperate symphony of survival. Steel met steel, sparks flaring as swords clashed, the floor slick with spilled ink and worse. A soldier lunged, his spear a viper's strike, but Gameon twisted aside, his staff finding flesh. Another charged, only to meet the swift arc of Gremio's axe. The fight was a blur of motion, dodging, striking, shielding, each heartbeat a gamble against death. Victor staggered, clutching a gash, but fought on, driven by the hideout's sanctity. The soldiers pressed hard, their boots grinding against stone, yet the group held, a fragile wall against the Empire's might. At last, the final soldier fell, his armor clattering in the sudden stillness, leaving only the rasp of labored breaths. But victory was hollow. Gaemon's gaze swept the wreckage and found her, Odessa, the rebellion soul, slumped against a blood-streaked wall. Her flaming red hair was matted with crimson, her breath a shallow thread fraying with each moment. The sight pierced Gameon like a blade, rooting him to the stone. "Lady Odessa, you're bleeding!" Gremio rushed forward, tried to stop the bleeding. "Odessa, how did this happen? Without you, the Liberation Army will be..." Victor was at a loss. "I am sorry, Victor. It seems I have chosen to be a woman over my responsibility to the Liberation Army." Odessa chose to sacrifice her life to save a child. She was the fire that had drawn him to this cause, her defiance a beacon in the Empire's gloom. His companions knelt beside her, hands fumbling to staunch the wound that drained her life. "Gameon, will you come over here?" Odessa struggled with her words. Gameon's knees met the floor, his mind a storm of rage and grief. The air grew heavy, the hideout's walls closing in as Odessa's eyes, dim but fierce, locked onto his. Her hand trembled, not seeking comfort, but passing a burden heavier than iron. "I have 2 requests for you. First, give this earring to a man called Mariu, who lives in the village of Seika," Odessa said. "Stop it, Odessa. None of this nonsense about final requests," Victor said, almost sobbing. "Victor, thank you, but it is too late for me now. I can feel it," Odessa said as she handed the earrings to Gameon. "For my second request, please throw my body into the stream there." Gameon couldn't do it, and he rejected the request. The liberation movement is still in its infancy. If others discover I am dead, the movement will die with me. That is why you must keep my death a secret. Gameon understood the reasons, but he still couldn't bear to do it. "All right. I will do it, Odessa," Victor said, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Victor. You are crying for me. Hey, if you meet Flick again, will you tell him for me? His kindness always saw me through." Well, I think this is goodbye, Gaemon. Live to see the free world I wasn't able to see. The moment shattered as her breath stilled. Silence fell, broken only by the drip of water and a torch's dying crackle. Gameon rose, fists clenched, the weight of her trust searing his soul. The soldiers were gone, their ruin complete, but the war stretched far beyond these walls. Lenankamp's streets waited outside, cold and unyielding, and with them a world teetering on chaos. Gaemon's resolve hardened, a vow kindled in loss. Mathieu would be found, and the rebellion would rise from these ashes. As they left the hideout, the city held its breath, its stones heavy with secrets. A sliver of sky broke through the clouds, pale as bone. Gaemon's steps echoed with purpose, each one a promise to carry Odessa's dream forward. The Empire's shadow loomed, but the spark of rebellion burned brighter, a flame no blade could snuff out. And this marked the end of the episode. If you have enjoyed the video, please give it a like and stay tuned for the next episode.